नहीं, हम कोई गुलाम तो नहीं, एक रब को मानते हैं, उस नबी के उम्मती है, खास है, कोई आम तो नहीं, हम कोई गुलाम तो नहीं, हम कोई गुलाम तो नहीं। क्यों लगे ये बोलियां कि हम बिकाऊ माल हैं, जाग गई है कौम अब लोग बाकमाल हैं। क्यों लगे ये बोलियां कि हम बिकाऊ माल हैं, जाग गई है कौम अब लोग बाकमाल हैं। हुक्मरानी गैर की एब्सोल्युटली नॉट, खुशहाली कुछ देर की एब्सोल्युटली नॉट, जो भी हमसे टकराए उसको जान लेंगे हम कोई गुलाम तो नहीं, हम कोई गुलाम तो नहीं, हम कोई गुलाम तो नहीं। दुनिया से अजीज है शान अर्ज़ पाक की, रब करे बुलंद हो आन अर्ज़ पाक की। दुनिया से अजीज है शान अर्ज़ पाक की, रब करे बुलंद हो आन अर्ज़ पाक की। राह में दीवार कोई एब्सोल्युटली नॉट, हैवान में गद्दार कोई एब्सोल्युटली नॉट, नौकर अब माफिया अब ये ठान लेंगे हम कोई गुलाम तो नहीं, हम कोई गुलाम तो नहीं, हम कोई गुलाम तो नहीं।
Now, this is the Khoodeelaar television channel, starting this edition with the playing of Suman Shak's item on "We are not anybody's slaves." Hum to koi gulam, koi nahi, hum koi gulam nahi. Let's get the actual words. Where is the actual words that we can actually play? And then we shall discuss a bit of it. So this is this. This is हम कोई गुलाम तो नहीं, absolutely not.
हम कोई गुलाम है कि जो आप कहेंगे हम कर ले।
Now this is the probably one of the more popular items in the list of anthems that the Tehreek-e-Insaf has actually been producing for the last year. And the momentum got heightened and speedier and faster with the anthems playing after the Pakistan Supreme Court was criminally abused to justify ousting Imran Khan's government. Now, we are marking here on the 23rd of December 2010. That was a Thursday. Today, the 23rd of December 2022 is a Friday. Apart from the difference in one day, the sequence and the contents are the absolutely solid ones, 12 years on as they were 12 years earlier. On Thursday, the 23rd of December, lunchtime, I went to the cafe or small restaurant that Kay and I used to frequent quite often for years. And I went there for lunch, and then it occurred to me that I should ring Montefiore Center where Kay was. And I rang, and a man called Aziz answered the phone. And I asked him where Kay was, and he said she was upstairs in the building. And I said, I'm going to get her lunch. Tell her that. So I bought lunch and went to the Montefiore Center in Hanbury Street. And I was waiting for a few minutes before Kay came down. Now, Kay, anyone who actually saw her in the Brooklyn area and in the work that she did, the SSBA, the Spitalfield Small Business Association, only those who saw her, only those who saw her with their own eyes would believe the absolute, endless work that she was doing. I mean, I cannot begin to say how speedy and how consistent she was with her work. As an architect, she was one of the best architects, one of the best architectural designers. As an architect, she knew how to talk to buildings. And she did talk to buildings. In Bethnal Green, on 2 occasions, I needed to sort out the papers in the room, in the flat. So Kay came and she said, I shouldn't be in the room while she was doing the sorting of the papers. And my feeling was that she might not get the right order and whatever. And she said, if I did that, then she won't be able to do it. So I had to leave her to do it. Now I can say this on the record that Kay did the work, say about 7 or 8 hours overnight, that would have taken, in my understanding, at least a dozen people. And they still wouldn't be able to match the cohesion with which she organized the papers. Now that was the opposite. This K. Jordan, this person was opposite. Total opposite in that respect to my mother. Because my mother, not my grandmother, but my mother had total kind of antipathy to papers, newspapers. Now, Kay didn't express an opinion about that, but she absolutely understood my relationship with the papers. So she never did what my mother did. I mean, I'd go from Silot, MC College, with people carrying my papers from the bus station, which was in Dhaka and across the field to Sandarpur. And as soon as I got the papers unloaded, My mother would be on the lookout for a man in the village called Moti or Muti, and she would give him any amount of money, and she would convince him that he would get more money if he took the papers and gave it to the shopkeepers in Dhaka. That's what my mother did. And I had no idea she was going to do that. Now, that was a long time ago, a long time before I met K. Jordan. And K. Jordan, I mean, Baz Harrell said in the short video that I did with him about K, that when he was walking through Brick Lane with K, Baz and K went to the architectural college, both of them architects. They went to the architectural college or architecture college, I'll get the spelling right, near the BBC's main headquarters. I think I'll check if I find the video that I did with Baz Harrell. So this should get the sound at least. Baz Harrell. Okay, it's not coming up, but I think we'll find it during the course of the essay, which we'll be doing during the next few editions. So Baz Harrell said that K was stopped like nobody he had ever seen. She was stopped and mobbed by people in Brick Lane. And he recalled K this, K that, K that. Every single problem under the sun in Brick Lane was supposed to be within K. Jordan's capacity to solve. That's what Baz Harrell recalled. I should play this during the essay, which will be over several editions. Now, when I saw the result of K. Jordan sorting out my papers, my only feeling was that she wasn't human. My only feeling was that she was inhuman in the most exclusive sense of the word. That she had a drive and an ability and a dedication and a focus that no ordinary human being possessed, in my knowledge. Now, she did the same thing with the painting of the buildings that she created as spaces for the establishment of the Spitalfield Small Business Association. Now, the fact that K. Jordan did the papers didn't end there. She actually commissioned one or two workers in the SSBA to make the shelves and shelves and shelves for keeping the various recordings, audio and video recordings. And unknown to her, of course, she would not be present after 2010, after December 2010, when all the work that she did for the archives, action archives of the sound and the video and the books and the documents would be made the target of unprecedented attack by depraved criminals, including that Aziz who ate the food that I bought on the 23rd of December 2010, including that boy whose stated date of year of birth is 1977, who was given, literally given a life by K. Jordan. That Beiman, that Beiman Fua, Chanumia, Beiman Fua Chanumia conspired with Aziz, conspired with the prostitute Stephanie MacDonald, conspired with the criminal mental slave Edith as they went about attacking those archives as well as the stored materials kept in other parts of the SSPS buildings. So this essay is going to be about updating, of course, but it's going to be about the history and the life of the people in Tower Hamlets and the future of the people in Tower Hamlets and the unique qualities, absolute unique qualities of universal humanity that were brought in plentiful delivery by K. Jordan. Now, privately, K. Jordan knew that most of the people that she was helping within the SSBA and in the general public population were, of course, as guilty as any other people. But she made a decision to help them. And one of the very last kind of incidents that Kay and I had in the commercial street, not commercial road, commercial street, was a racist criminal thug on a motorbike interrupted my conversation with K. Jordan. Now, that conversation, as many conversations, was very, very forceful, very angry exchanges. But that racist criminal thought that I, an Asian man, how dare I talk to a white woman in the way that I was doing to him? So he di- diverted my attention and actually engaged me in a row, telling me things that I would not have allowed him to tell another time. But this was while Kay was around. And Kay got in the mode of thinking, well, this is not good because this is not helping our cause. So she wanted to get away. She wanted to go home. While I was having all kinds of strategic thoughts as to how to tackle this racist cunt, Kay kept saying to me, please, can I go home? So she was completely oblivious to the fact that I was engaged in a probably very serious physical engagement. I didn't engage, go to that extent because the criminal disappeared with his bike, in his motorway bike. Now, K helped, like this woman who lives in Quaker Street, was in the at the beginning of the setting up of the Heba Women's Project. Afruza. Afruza remembers K. Jordan kind of treating her as a young sister. Like K treated so many Bangladeshi women she helped as her younger sisters or her kind of adopted daughters. Now, contrast to K. Jordan, who told me that she was from the Viking stock, the Vikings coming from the continent, mainland continent. And she was from Yorkshire. The Vikings are notorious for their bad temper and all the other things. And of course, the Vikings, most of the Vikings are associated with racism. But Kajoda decided that she would help these people, the Bangladeshis, Silotis, Muslim as well, to the best of her abilities. That is in contrast to the racist, Tower Hamlets born white cunts. Two of the cunts used to be, well, just as part of Chris Searle's encouraging the sort of thing in the so called basement writers in the mid 1970s. Both these cunts, both these white cunts, born and brought up in Tower Hamlets, these white cunts knew me in the 70s at the basement writers, which I didn't need to belong to, but which Chris Searle wanted me to belong to. Both these criminal racist liars have behaved in such racist ways that I shall include those incidents in this video essay update on Kai Jordan. Not this edition, but later. And another racist cunt interrupted my conversation with K. Jordan not long after the end of the 22nd of January 2006 action rally held in the Brady Center. Again, this criminal racist cunt shall not be allowed to get away. But she was one of the others that I have mentioned, the two that used to be in the basement writers. They were typical, those were typical, including Jill Cobb, the racist cunt that comes from Brighton. The racist criminal cunt, Jill Cobb, comes from Brighton and she is as racist as they come. So the racist cunts like Jill Cobb and the racist cunts like these other two basement writers are and have been for a very long time the norms. They are not. They never have been. They never could be anything other than the crassest possible racist cunts you could imagine. So you contrast with the racist cunt Leslie Garner, whose byline appeared in the article attacking the celebrities of Brick Lane in the Sunday Times magazine of the 2nd of December 1973. And these are things that happened before I met K. Jordan. I met K. Jordan only in July 2001. That's all. It was just under, I would say, just under 10 years, or maybe just around 9 years that we knew. But I think that we did more in those 9 years for the community together that could not have been done by 90 years or even longer. So K. Jordan, I mean, when she went visiting Japan, she told friends that she was she was Japanese. I mean, what she meant was that she felt very at home with the Japanese. She absolutely loved Japanese people. And when she met people from Africa, she would say she's an African. I mean, that's K. And of course, Kay and I spent hours every night, hours on the telephone. Talking what? Talking pigeons and kittens. Hours talking about the pigeons and the kittens. Of course, the kittens are not friends with the pigeons, but we had the space to update each other on a daily basis about the state of the kittens in her kind of area, which is in Kentish Town in Camden. And the pigeons that would fly in. And she had a number of favorite ones. And she would give the most detailed descriptions of the pigeons every day. And she, of course, when she had a place in France, she had, like some people buy places in France as holiday places. She had a holiday place, and she became fond of the local chicken and her brood and the kittens, and would tell me about all the adventures those things, those kittens and the chicken got up to, and so on. So when I bought the lunch for Kay, I had not intended it to be eaten secretly. We wanted to eat it openly. And there was this expectation that anyone else who shared it would do that as a niyamat, as a blessing. That's how I treated that lunch. Well, I treat every lunch, but and this Aziz the Shaitan and this ungrateful boy in great Chanumia, the son of Shaitan, took part in the eating. And of course, Kay and I ate as well. So in the essay updating, I shall be going through every minute aspect of the detail of that lunch. So for this particular edition there, I shall end that lunch thing now. Moving on to the issue of Chris Searle and his basement writers. Now, Chris Sarl, if you look him up, is there in the wiki entries as one of the figures that has been an activist teacher. And he was featured in the Sun newspaper. Now, whether it was the time when Murdoch had taken over or just before, because Chris Sarl was, I think, given the sack by the school that he was working at. So that was in the 70s. Then Chris Sarl, I mean, I met him not long after that. I met him through one of my younger brothers who was a student of people at the Langdon Park School where Chris Sarl was teaching. And I think my brother mentioned to Chris Sarl that he had a brother called me, and Chris Sarl expressed interest in meeting me. That's how I met. I never told any of my siblings to mention me to anyone. I don't do that. But I find that all my siblings mentioned me to people they met more than they should. For example, one Tower Hamlets ex-councillor, Khalis Uddin, who was a Labour Party councillor and who has betrayed, he made about 100 promises to me and he never kept the promises and eventually only met me when John Biggs attacked him and needed my support. That is the occasion when he met me. So Khalisuddin is one of the, let's say, casualties of his own stupidity, his own jealousy, and his own mental slavery. He says to me in the Victoria Park Square, "What shall I describe you as? How dare you, liar, Khalis?" Minutes before that, he had described Jalaluddin as his hero. For fuck's sake. He calls Jalal his hero and he tells me, asks me, what would he describe me as? How the fuck not? So Khalisuddin is one of the people who told me, he said that he knew all about me, which was a strange thing for me to hear. Because I never had a single conversation with him about who I was, whatever. I said, why do you say that you knew all about me? Then he described one of my brothers, who's passed away, telling him about me. Now, I don't know what my brother said, but I never, ever wanted any of them to tell people about me. Because for a start, I am not there doing whatever I'm doing, which is what they mention, in order for them to get a reference, in order for them to get an artificial platform by kind of reflecting, abusing my connection with them. The fact that they are my siblings, full stop, they are not me. And I have no responsibility towards them. And yet I raised them. I brought them up, all of them. Not my father, because my father was away. And I was the one who helped my mother in the most desperately emotionally strained kind of experience every time there was a young one to raise and etc. etc. So these siblings of mine had no authority, nor did I need them to speak about me to anyone. Going back to Crystal, remember? So Crystal met me, and eventually it was agreed in the 70s that I would write a piece about the rebel poet Qazi Nazrul Islam. And Crystal, he said he would publicize this in the literary magazine that he edited, whatever the magazine. All of this I'll come back to revisit. But Crystal never followed up any of the things that I did for his benefit, for his understanding, effectively for his education. But Crystal thinks that as an English born person, he is like Jesus Christ. Because he thinks that the Asians and Africans should all be taught English. It's a very perverted form of Thomas Babington Macaulay. When Crystal was in Mozambique in the 70s, remember Mozambique was one of the trendiest destinations for so many white leftists who were essentially colonialists, imperialists with the varnish on the left. So when he was there, the so-called first anthology of the basement writers' writings would be published. And what did the fuckers do? These racist children of racists in the East End of London fucked it up so well that they left my poems out of the collection. And I wasn't going to, because I have never done this and I never needed this. I didn't need any association with them, and I never needed any of my writings included in there. So when Chris Searle came back from Mozambique, and I told him what the racists had done, he offered to publish my stuff. And I refused. This is like the National Union of Journalists magazine called The Journalist. This came at a time when I think the GLC was just about kind of subjected to the coup by Ken Livingston, etc. And this editor of the so-called Journalist came to discuss with me the draft that he had written about me, a profile. Profile would be like about a page of the East End News of the then East London Idiotizer. And this idiot called me a messiah. Now, messiah is something associated with the Christians, not with Muslims. But the messiah thing has persisted because the Guardians, Sarah Bosley, the racist cunt, ran the piece The Angry Messiah of E1 about me in March 1992. So when the editor of the Journalist came and showed me that thing, which showed that I was a messiah, I said, fuck off. I don't need this fucking propaganda. I am too busy doing the work. Fuck off. I paid for the tea in the Cannon Street Road cafe, and I told you to fuck back off to the NUJ Acorn House in King's Cross. All these things I'm retailing to show that when I met K. Jordan, the usual reactions, the usual disagreements, and the hostility that the racists display, or even cynicism, none of this was there. It is like K. Jordan accepted my account of the world and the struggles as being authentic. And she also found it helpful that around the time that we met, Tasadduq Ahmad has passed away. Now, Tasadduq Ahmad was in the titular post of chair of the SSPA, where she put this liar Aziz after Tasadduq Ahmad passed away. But my understanding of Tasadduq Ahmad, not personally because he was about 20 years older than me and he was nearer my youngest uncle's age, but I wanted to know what was making K. Jordan think what she was thinking, say what she was saying. So this was Tasaddiq Ahmad's passing. And at the memorial for Tasaddiq Ahmad, I spoke, but as happens quite often with me, that's why I avoid attending memorial things. I couldn't contain my emotions. And the reason is not because I was missing Tasaddiq Ahmad, but because I had so many disagreements with him, but those disagreements were very essential for the community. That's what I was missing and mourning. Same thing had happened with the Kholoibutu. Kholoibutu is a Silati phrase I devised for this man. They have completely raised to the outer space. It's called Ahmad Fakhruddin. I had created this name, this image, Kholoibutu, which worked. But Kholoibutu, long before I ever knew about Tasadduq Ahmad, had been a loyal servant of Tasadduq Ahmad. So much so that everything Tasadduq said about the world, Kholoibutu accepted as the gospel word. So we'll talk about more about Kholoibutu and Tasadduq Ahmad later. Not in this edition, but other editions. And we shall come back to talk about K. Jordan in the next edition, whenever that is.